Hello everyone and welcome to another Nerd Break video. My name is Joseph the Broseph and today I'm a little cranky because the virtual game cards were announced at the latest Nintendo Direct, and at first I thought it was kind of working in reverse of how the family sharing system worked for the Switch currently. But now, after doing my research and not just having a bad take in a reaction video, I've come to understand this a little bit better, and I want to talk about how this is both a good thing and a bad thing. And one of the first things that really strikes me is that Nintendo is trying very hard to make digital games a physical commodity to a certain extent, kind of like NFTs and whatnot, where you can, in the case of virtual game cards, be able to lend out your games to not just whoever you want. We'll circle back to that in a second. But you can lend them out to people for a period of 2 weeks, and the catch to that is they have to be in your family group. Now, what that winds up amounting to, I'm not 100% sure. Speculation on my part would be that it's kind of similar to your family group if you have a family plan on Nintendo Switch Online, but do not take my word for that because I am not 100% sure on that fact at this moment. What I am sure about is that whichever Switch you're lending out your digital game to, it has to be physically near you because the lending out process is on a local connection as opposed to just anybody in the world being able to borrow your game from you, which makes sense. You don't want to just lend the game out to just whoever you want. The bad part of all this, in my mind, though, is that when you lend a game out, you cannot play that game, and it stands to reason. The reason why they call it a virtual game card is because, just like a physical game card, you cannot keep playing your game if you've lended out the physical cartridge to somebody else. That makes sense. Sure, that's kind of crazy though, in our digital age where you can buy a game and multiple people that have your account can access it. I mean, that's like Netflix and them cracking down on passwords where you can share your Netflix account information at one time and multiple people can see and view whatever on your account at any point in time. Virtual game cards work in the opposite. This is going the opposite direction. This is NFT blockchain territory, and I don't presume to know everything about all that, and I'm not going to get into all that, but that's what's coming to my mind here. And this is really kind of an interesting idea, but I think Nintendo should have implemented it way sooner in the life cycle of the Switch instead of having the family plan. Now, how I've come to understand that the family plan on NSO works is that whoever is on the account can play the game, but only the designated primary Switch can play that game without an internet connection, and everybody else has to play that game with an internet connection. Otherwise, the game just stops and they can't play it until the internet connection is reestablished. But that is still superior, to me at least, over the virtual game cards, as you don't lose access to the game to lend it out to somebody else. And this is part of the reason why I'm a little cranky about this, because you could be splitting a payment with somebody for access to all these games that you have, and all they have to have is an internet connection in order to be able to play them, versus lending out a game and not being able to play it for 2 weeks. Yeah, it's nuts to me in my mind how they've decided that this is the solution that they are going with. Now, there's gonna be some advantages to this virtual game card stuff. I mean, if you're wanting to lend it out to a friend and they're not in the group that is paying for Nintendo Switch Online, which again, this is stuff that's undecided, but let's say that they aren't paying for Nintendo Switch Online or in the family plan, then if you can lend out a game to that person, this makes more sense. I mean, not everybody wants to pay for Nintendo Switch Online and be in a big family plan. That's kind of expensive, but if you're not dividing it out among people, I can understand that. So the virtual game card has an advantage in that regard, but we don't know 100% sure if that is the case just yet, because like I stated earlier, the virtual game card lending process has to have the person in your family group, and we don't know what that means yet. So Nintendo has a lot of explaining to do. There's a lot that they have to nail down and get people to know before this stuff really can be utilized. I can see people using this. I can, as long as it is, like I was saying, without having to have the family plan for Nintendo Switch Online being paid for. You can just lend out game cards, especially if they're games that you're done playing with or whatever. 2 weeks is not a long time to be letting somebody play your game. It would actually be better if you could give a set amount of time that you could set. I know that the reason Nintendo set it for like 2 weeks is because they don't want somebody taking advantage of somebody else. They don't want them infinitely holding onto a game. That wouldn't make any sense. But I think that Nintendo should at least let people set an amount of time that they want to lend the game out. And it could be just a simple pop-up that says, you know, how about you let me borrow the game for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. There needs to be an upper limit to this. Maybe a month is the upper limit, but it needs to have a little pop-up window that gives people a choice of how long they can lend the game out for. That way it gives people a little more time, because ultimately what the virtual game card system winds up being is a extended demo of the game that you're playing. There are people that can sure beat a game in 2 weeks. There are people like me that could play a game infinitely for a year. But to say just 2 weeks flat on all games is kind of it's not a great decision, because then you're essentially forcing somebody to say, hey, I'm lending you this game, and there's very little chance that you're ever going to beat it, especially if it's an RPG that's 100 plus hours long, like, say, Xenoblade Chronicles X that just recently released. That game, nobody is going to beat in 2 weeks that has an actual life outside of video games. I mean, come on, Nintendo. But that just ultimately leads into the idea that Nintendo wants people to buy their games, and this, again, is just kind of an extended demo, really. It's a new way of saying the virtual game trial stuff that they've been doing. But I don't know. Let me know what you think. If you agree with me, disagree with me, give me your thoughts down in the comments section below. Let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button as well as subscribe to the channel. That way you don't miss out on any of my future content. But hope to see y'all again next time. And as always, don't forget to take a break from life and nerd out. Bye, everyone.